What's up, you guys? It's Matt here. And you know what we're here to talk about? AMC. Now, in this video, we're going to go through the update of what happened to AMC today, because that's really the question, is like, what's going on? A lot of people's focus was on other positions that were growing quite a bit. And maybe we can talk about that in like the MP Shorts channel. So if you guys want to go over there and check some of those videos out, those are 1-minute videos where you get an understanding of exactly what did happen today and where my head is on the topic at hand. So anyways, we're going to talk about AMC today. Make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell for more videos like this one. And also check out some of my information down below. Click some of the links. It does help out the channel. Now, what we're going to talk about today, like I said, is updates on AMC. And we're also going to get into something specific. I get a question a lot asking me, how high can AMC go? And I think that question deserves a solid answer. And it's not necessarily saying, hey, this is the price that it's absolutely going to no matter what. You know what I mean? I need to get an understanding of everybody out there because there's so many variables that take place. And when you have all those variables, there's so many things that could happen based on one person doing a different thing or a group of people doing something specific. But before we get into that, let's dive into this. That should be somewhere halfway through the video. But we can look at what did happen today. In the pre-market, we had a lot of fluctuation, some good movement today, mainly downhill though. We broke, $40. We closed below $40, I believe. Yes, we closed at $39.24 and decreased even more when we got into the actual morning. We decreased more, started to have a little bit of a comeback here, but they did push this down. Now, notice in the past where we looked at the Ortex data, we saw a bunch of shorts or a bunch of shares being borrowed. Those shares were not actually being used when they borrowed those shares. A lot of times they build up the amount of shares that they have. Just because they borrowed the shares doesn't mean that they need to short it on that day. So understand that they can gather all these up and short what they want us to see, firsthand, what they want us to see right in front of our eyes. They're painting this picture. That's what they can show us. Now, they do have information and stuff that's happening behind the scenes that we can't really see. And I understand where that's coming from. That's why we understand why this is going to squeeze so much. But just know that when something like that happens, they can build up to shorting this thing a hefty amount. So we saw in the morning, it actually decreased even more, broke well below that 37 mark down to $36.13, $36.08 or so. Did increase. You saw a rapid increase here, which was a lot of buying strength. A lot of buying strength. We really didn't see any red candlesticks, just like 1, 2, 3, 4 in a matter of however many minutes, almost 30 minutes, right? Then we saw, kind of shit hit the fan. It fell down. It started to create lower highs, lower lows, and it really didn't recover until after it hit below $36.96, where we started to see that recovery. And now we're seeing a firm recovery at the end of the day, which typically we'll see something different, where we'll see a rapid decrease at the end of the day, but they decreased it so much during the day that's why we're seeing that increase. Today's volume is around 44 million shares worth of volume. I would imagine they're shorting a hefty amount of that. Basically everything was red. There was a lot of things that were red. Everything that I was watching besides 2 positions were red today. It just wasn't really a solid day for a lot of things. There's a bunch of things that were green, but there's a lot that was red. So I still have my 900 shares, right? I just wanted to keep you guys informed that I'm still holding what I'm holding. But what I wanted to talk about here today, and since I gave you that update, which you'll get a quicker update over on the MP Shorts channel if you guys want to check that out, I wanted to talk about how high AMC can get to. This is a question that I hear all the time, to where people are like, hey, how high can this stock go? What is your feeling? Like, where do you think the floor is? Where do you think the ceiling is? Where can this actually go based on the shorts? And it's not just based on the shorts. It's based on what people do. We see that a lot of people are holding, but what happens when they start to hit some of their profit targets? What's going to happen then? Are we also going to see them short? Are we going to see a bailout? What are we going to see? All of the variables that take place, if we don't see those things play out in certain ways, we won't see this get to a crazy high price that we're hoping for, right? But I wanted you to take a look at this. So I put out 2 polls I think it was a month ago, and I wanted to get all the votes in. We got 3,200 votes on the first one, and 2,900 votes on the second one. And basically, on the ones that I asked for, now I tried to hide it. I guess they didn't. Maybe people didn't know what I was talking about. But on the one, I asked how many shares do people own. I want to know out of the people that watch me, how many people own 10,000 shares, how many people own 30,000 shares. Obviously I had a gap between 200 and 500, but if you did hold those, I would imagine you selected somewhere around 500, which I consider the same amount, or they basically have the same decision making process. Anything where it was like that 200 or lower, they had a different decision making process. But from 200 all the way up to 1,000, they had the same decision making process. 1,000, you had 10,000, you had 30,000. Now, the reason why I did this was because I wanted to get a sense of what people are doing at certain shares. And I also wanted to know how many shares people are holding, which I wanted to know what like the average actually was. And the average, you look at what Adam Aaron said, it's around 120 shares that people are holding, but I wanted to know the average around mine. Um, the next question that I had here is basically like if you had $1 million and it was just any asset, it didn't matter what it was. You saw that you invested in something and you now had $1 million in the morning. It just happened to grow to that level. What do you do to that position? Do you sell 25%, 50%, 75%? Cash out, hold all shares. What do you do? And you had 10% that said they would hold all their shares. You had 42% say that they would cash out completely, 17% say that they would cash out 75%, 20% say that they would cash out 50%, and then 11% saying they would cash out 25%. So the reason why I did that is because I want to know if you get to a point to where you're holding 120 shares and the average is 120, what is the likelihood that you will sell that position in full once it gets to $1 million, right? And not saying that you wouldn't probably make that move lower than that. I just want to get a sense of the people that when it gets to a certain price holding 100 shares, you really didn't risk too much. And now you're gaining a lot out of it, right? What are you going to do with that? So with the average being 120 shares and seeing that 42% will end up cashing out at those levels, that's where you can say, okay, what are they actually going to do? What is the price actually going to do? It's not going to rapidly decrease because people will not just solely cash out. You have 42% that will, but you have a bunch of other people that will actually hold all shares, only sell 25%, 50%, 75%. That's not everything, right? I always recommend whenever you have some position that doubles, triples, quadruples, 10x, you basically pull out of bits and pieces. Cover your initial investment. Everything on top of that is gravy. Maybe you can cover some extra things that you wanted to cover. But if you sell everything, you lose out on the opportunity of growth as you go along. So that's the reason why I wanted to talk about this. Anytime someone asks you, if you have that conversation with somebody and they say, hey, what is AMC going to get to? You say, let me quick ask you a question. If you woke up and you had one position that reached $1 million in your account, what do you do to that position? What do you do with that position? And if they answer that question in a certain way, then you could say, okay, well, the peak probably will be, let's say, $1,000. If you're looking to sell, and let's say it was just us two that were holding, and you look to sell everything, well, that's going to decrease, supply and demand. It's going to add more supply out there, and the demand's not going to be as high. So it's going to end up decreasing, and then what's going to happen there? You know what I mean? Like it's only you and me that are holding. Now you factor that into a larger scale, and now you're looking at something to where it's like, all right, how much does this decrease at every resistance level? So there's a lot of variables that take place, and I can't I can't automatically answer exactly where it's going to get to. What's the peak of this? Because the peak, the peak with everything playing out the way it should play out is essentially $100,000, $200,000. It could be $500,000 because if everything played out perfectly, where people were holding like 90% of the stock, and they continue to hold 90% of the stock, that's where it ends up getting to a crazy high, Do you know what I mean? But if people start to find those levels and they're like, you know what, I want to protect my gains, which is understandable. I'm all for it. If you have people that say, I want to protect my gains and cash out 100%, then it ends up getting iffy. So that's why I always talk about I have a conservative floor, and I know that $1,000 to $2,000 is where I consider the floor. Now, the ceiling, how high I can get to, that depends on you. What is your decision? What are you going to do with your 120 shares? What are you going to do with your 30,000 shares? I noticed that a lot of other people that held 30,000, I think it was 10,000 or higher, said that they would only sell at max 25%. Anything, it would have to get to a higher price for them to sell more than that, but it would still be 25%, right? So let me know what you think about this. I did a little bit of research on this, and I'm glad that a lot of people answered this poll, but it's definitely interesting. And I want to do a full analysis to understand that, but there's so many variables. I tried to break it down. There's so many variables that it gets overly complex, and I'm a person that loves doing data analytics, that loves actually breaking down analysis. I do financial analysis all the time. That's literally my job. So I breaking all this down, there were so many variables that it was like, if you make this one move, well, now this changes the overall situation forever. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to go there. I would love to do that, but it's way too much. Trust me, you don't want to see it. You will get confused. But that's it, guys. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell for more videos like this one. I'm still holding my 900 shares. I'm still going to continue to hold, and you all know what my strategy is when it comes to AMC. But I can confirm that my thought is that we would see a floor of that 1,000 to 1,000, or sorry, $2,000 or so, somewhere in that range. But the ceiling is just, it's endless. It really is, depending on what you guys do. But I'm going to get out of here, and I will catch you guys in the next video.